First thing I would tell them is this as the absolute geographic center of Shelby County. And it's made in 1885, the same year as this courthouse is made. Actually, it's not the exact geographic center. The exact geographic center, according to the surveys of this gentleman over here in the beard, is the other side of the new post office, on top of that hill, where incidentally one of my uncles lived at one time or another, right on top of that hill.
Who built the courthouse?
JJE Gibson was the architect. He was born in Ireland to Irish parents, of course. At that time, they were having one of those Irish rebellions, and his father and mother decided that it would be best if they just left Ireland and came to the United States, which they did, but JJE couldn't come with them because he was only 2 years old, and the way ships were in those days, they were afraid that he wouldn't be able to stand the trip. So he stayed in Ireland and got the equivalent of a college degree there by the time he was 16 years old. And at that time, he came to the United States to live with his parents who had settled in St. Louis. And he stayed there a short period of time. Then he and a cousin who had the same name, John Jacob Emmett Gibson, went to South Louisiana, where they practiced architecture, built fine homes there. And there's a road between Baton Rouge and New Orleans that runs parallel to the river. And they decorated some of those homes. Well, later on, I'll point out the shutters. Those shutters are very uncommon, and but you find a lot of them up and down that river between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and I think that's because the Gibson boys were there.
I want to know about your ancestor, Louis Jones, because he got here about the same time Gibson got here, didn't he?
No, Louis Jones got here in about 1840. So it was a long time before Gibson came along. His family moved here from Indiana. And the older Louis Jones was a builder, and when he finished the 1840 wooden 3-story courthouse in Indiana, they paid him. He had a big wad of money, so they decided to come to Texas. And he built a houseboat big enough to accommodate 7 people. And when he finished the boat, they boarded it, they floated down 2 other rivers into the Ohio, into the Mississippi, and on down to Baton Rouge, where they disembarked sold their boat and bought a wagon and team of mules and came to Texas. And we still here.
Last this long.
Yeah. Most people think just the opposite. They think that a clay is a good foundation. Actually, clay is the worst foundation you would get because it shrinks and swells with water. So he just dug down to the level that he wanted to be and started laying brick right on the dirt. And as you can see, it worked. The building's still here. There are no cracks in it. It's in good condition.
The courtroom.
Oh, yeah. Well, every architect knows that triangles are the only rigid figure. There are so many triangles supporting the roof of this building that it's nearly impossible I've started counting them several times and gave up because it's triangle within triangle within triangle. And it's just an amazing piece of architecture. Yeah, this was these same stairs. And of course, they've had to be a few original steps in this staircase over here, but most of them are, replaced steps. Had others that have worn out before. Okay, well, when we redid the courthouse, there was only one original bench remaining. So they made arrangements, sent it to Mexico where it was copied enough time to redo all those bridges just like benches just like they always were. The cast iron used in making the bench is there is a dragon built into it, and this dragon is shown swallowing his own tail, which makes it okay for a court of law because it's evil destroying itself. Sure. The school we attended was a block from the square in the direction I'm pointing on Nacogdoches Street. And a lot of kids had to walk through the square to go home. And if they wanted to climb the stairs and go up to the cupola up on top, they just, even if they were having court, they just went on up there, and the judge said, "Oh, that's just Mr. Jones, little boy. He's not going to hurt anything." We were very casual in those days. Everybody knew everybody, of course. And it's a great time to grow up. Yes.
Tell us about the track hole.
I don't know if that camera will pick it up, but there's a door right down here that opens onto a staircase. And you can go up that staircase and make a right angle turn and come out right at the judge's bench. And that's the way the judge entered and left the courthouse back in the old days. He didn't walk down the center aisle. Yeah, that's the only violence that we know of that ever occurred. The judge was walking down the center of the aisle for some reason. Maybe that's when they quit using it. And they hit the judge and knocked him down. And the judge just got up and went to the judge's bench and sat down and held court.
Tell me about that again.
Okay, I can't think of the word, acoustically constructed so that it would throw the judge's voice and the crowd didn't have any problem hearing him. And then if somebody in the crowd said something, it gathered it so that the judge could hear better.
So
it worked both ways. Yes, he did. Mr. Gibson had a brick kiln right straight this direction. If you went down to Shelbyville Street, there's a street called Center Street on the left, and you turn right and go up to the top of that hill. There were coal mines there, and there was water, and there was clay. All the three things that he needed to make brick. And that's where all the bricks in this courthouse were made, right within a half a mile of here, I'd say. His name is on most of his brick, not all of them, but yeah, that's true. I used to be a brick collector, and of course it was easy for me to get a Gibson brick, but other people might not have been so lucky. No, it was just a regular brick, except it was a little bit oversized, maybe 3 to 5, 8 inches oversized in length, and a little bit wider the others. And what else can I say? It was maybe 1/8 of an inch thicker too. No, it was the same time.
At the same time?
They were built at the same time. And there was right over in the northeast corner, but later on, it was the one on the northeast corner was made into a ladies' restroom. People were, they came to town to spend the day and into the night, so we had to have restrooms for the people to use back in those days. Glass, anything made of steel. I don't know where it originated. Probably the East Coast, or it could have come from Europe. But it had to come in to the Mississippi River south of New Orleans and up there until they got to the Red River. And the Red River runs into the Mississippi, and it came up the Red River to Shreveport. And it was unloaded in Shreveport, and then they went to Shreveport and picked up, I mentioned glass. I'll think of something else in a little bit. But it was about a 10 or 12 day trip to Shreveport and back in those days, because they used the slowest animals for pulling oxen, because they could pull more weight even though they were slower. And there were a group camps set up a day apart so that they could camp overnight in these places that were made especially for that. Coming back the same way, of course. Carthage made the duplicate to this courthouse in Carthage. And they were built at the same time. Mr. Gibson lived in Tenaha. So one day he would come to Center and check things out. He had an overseer here. Next day he would go to Carthage, had an overseer up there. So it was easy for him to handle the situation like it was then.
It burned?
It burned into, I believe it is 1937, or somewhere right in that area of time. Yeah.
But was it built at about the same time as the courthouses?
Well, no doubt in the same, within a few years of
When I
each
see a
other.
picture of it, it looks a little bit like this courthouse. It has the same,
Yeah, you saw the picture in
yeah.
this room over here. Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
I guess that was his style, you know. There was a water tank right over there. That siren was, I don't know whether it was all the way to the top of that or not, but
was on the water.
that's where the siren was. And I believe the firemen were the ones who blew the siren at noon.
Yeah.
Or if there was a fire, they did the siren also. There was no sign of this well over there. It's the other side of the jailhouse, or what's then the jailhouse. And James Campbell and somebody were going to put up a sign. And James was digging with a post hole digger, and all of a sudden that post hole digger just fell out of his hand and went down, and he didn't even hear it hit bottom down there so far. And turns out that it was a well that had been filled in, and then it settled, the dirt settled. Instead of settling all the way from the top down, it settled from about 6 or 7 feet down, from there down. And so that left this hollow place there for James to lose his post hole digger. I tried to get them to reconstruct that well. I didn't work here then, but nobody was the least bit interested in putting that well back like it had originally been. But I wouldn't see the harm in it now. But there was a time when this, you might say from John C. Rogers down this way, burned. And they used this well and a bucket brigade, you know what that is, to fight that fire with. But it destroyed all that part of the square. Yeah, this quadrant and part of this quadrant wouldn't grow grass for some reason. It got dry a lot quicker than the rest of the lawn. And so I just came up here every day about 11 o'clock and had a hose and sprinklers, and I would turn it on and come back in a hour maybe and move it to another spot. And eventually I rebuilt a lawn on this part of the courthouse square.
People still
But I will say this though, I've enjoyed every minute of it.
That's good.
Right. The furthest came from New Zealand. That's as far as you can get. We've had people come here all the way, not especially for this courthouse, of course, but they were from New Zealand and they were passing through Center and saw the courthouse and stopped. and I gave them the tour. There was a man named Travis C. Price, who was a jeweler, and he agreed to put a clock on the courthouse square if he could have his name on it. So he got what he wanted, permission to put the clock with his name on it, and it, somehow or other over the years, once this clock was sent north to be worked on, and somehow or other they got rid of that Travis C. Price name on that clock. But he is the man who was responsible for the clock being on the square. I believe that clock was moved here from Louisiana. I'm not real sure about that, but it was made in New York. They used to have in election years, that was where the politicians came to make their political speeches from, or right over there. And then right over here, when the election actually occurred, they had huge blackboards, I guess. Yeah, that's what they were, blackboards. And every time they got a report in, they would change the way the vote was going on there. And that's was used for years that way. Also, to raise money for good causes, they had what they call pie suppers. You ever heard of a pie supper? And what it was, they would auction off pies that the ladies baked and brought up there. And if you happened to be the husband of the lady who baked that pie, you best be the man that bought it. So those pies bought outrageous numbers. You could run it up on those guys and they couldn't get off. They started to, but they were stopped because a brick has what is called a patina, which is a thin layer on the outside that, because of the fire, this patina that was formed was waterproof. So if you sandblasted it, you destroyed that. And they did start sandblasting it, but somebody knew about this situation and stopped them from it. And then those bricks that had been sandblasted had to be chemically treated to recreate that seal there so that water couldn't get inside. If water enters those bricks and then it freezes, it weakens them. And finally, if it just keeps on long enough, those bricks will disintegrate. That was why they were sandblasting. I guess it must have been chemically somewhere or other that they got rid of it. Yeah. Rex Payne was thought he was doing a generous act to donate that paint, but in reality, it was the worst thing they could have done. But they stopped it though. They didn't do the whole building. They stopped it in time. It just part of it had to be redone. Well, it was right outside these doors. They dug a pit, 4 by 4 by 4, one for men and one for women. And it was just an outdoor toilet, only it was indoors. there was a sand bin on the wall. I forgot about that. And when you you use the commode, and then you lifted the seat, and this opened a valve, and this sand, well, I guess it just dumped, yeah, it just dumped sand on top of it. And then some poor sucker that was in jail had to clean it out every now and then. Yes, that was in case a fire broke out on the first floor, and it would help keep it from spreading to the courtroom. Real fireplaces?
Yeah.
I think there's 6. I'm not sure. These chimneys are just for decorative purposes, but some of them did have fireplaces in them. The ladies' restroom and the men's restroom, and then this corner over here and over here had real fireplaces in them. I don't think there were any down on this end. Could have been though. I don't believe these brick will hold up that long. You see, these brick are not made out of what you might call really brick clay. They were just made out of the dirt that we got here. And like over between Mount Enterprise and Nacogdoches, you know, there's a brick company over there, and those brick they'll last, you might say, forever, because they're the kind of it's the kind of clay that they always make brick out of if it's available, and it lasts a long time. My name is Joe Louis Jones. I was born in 1927, which makes me 88 years old at this time. Or the 4th of May, I'll be 88 years old. Oh, by the way, this courthouse belongs to me. Doc asked me to come to work up here, and I says, what do you want me to do? He says, I don't know. He says, do whatever you want to do. It's your courthouse. He was the judge, so this is my courthouse.
That's great. Yeah.
My favorite thing, one of them is showing the shutters off, and the other, the judge's alcove there, that, what do you call it, dome-like, half dome. To me, that sets it, that just sets that courtroom off. Just being here, it's what I enjoy, just being here. And of course, I get to meet a lot of people, and most of them are interested. People that are not interested in history, of course, they wouldn't need to care anything about coming here. But I just enjoy associating with the people that come here to see the old building.